The language of moral condemnation and destructive routine, these are arguments and disagreements that have to stop. No one should carelessly compare political opponents to historical villains, which is done often, it's done all the time. Got to stop.
That was President Trump last night. Let's get to our headliner this morning. Anthony Scaramucci is the former White House communications director and author of a brand new book, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank
Trump,
you.
the blue-collar president. Anthony, you spent a lot of your time talking about the president, where he's coming from on issues. Where is the president coming from on this particular issue?
I think he was great last night. I mean, he's setting the right message now. It's a more temperate message, and let's try to de-escalate the tension that's out there, because you don't want the rhetoric and the roughness of the rhetoric to turn into violence. And so I think the president, listen, he's the leader of the free world. A lot of people will listen to him and hopefully dial down and de-escalate some of the activity.
Is he responsible for any of it?
I think we all are. I don't think it's just the president. I think there's elements of the media that fires people up. There's elements of the Democratic Party that does the same thing, Republicans, and certainly, you know, the president has his moments where he's been very aggressive with his rhetoric. Knowing him as well as I feel I know him, it's usually when somebody's coming after him. I've never really seen him get up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to start a vicious attack of A, B, and C. It's usually somebody's firing in a missile into his territory, and then he starts his counterattack.
I'm going to put two things on screen and just react to it, because they're coming from different planets here now. Jeff Zucker, CNN. There is a total and complete lack of understanding at the White House about the seriousness of their continued attacks on the media. The president, especially the White House press secretary, should understand their words matter. Thus far, they have shown no comprehension of that. Sarah Sanders was on our air about 2 hours ago. She had a very strong reaction, and this on Twitter. Donald Trump asked Americans to come together and send one very clear, strong, unmistakable message that acts or threats or political violence of any kind have no place in the USA, yet you choose to attack and divide. America should unite against all political violence. Those two sides are not going to come together.
Yeah, there was a war declaration. And those two sides are at war. Steve Bannon called for that war at CPAC a few years ago. The president feels justified because he'll look at the Harvard study. 92% of the media is decidedly against him and biased. And again, that's the Harvard study. That's not a Republican saying it. And the White House does feel under siege. And so justifiably, people like Sarah Sanders feel that they don't get a fair shake. You know, I'm a little sore. Yesterday, CNN, they asked me if the president tells mistruth or lies. I said he does intentionally lie to create a dog whistle and create some atmospherics, and so that you raise the volume on him like a high school proctor. And so they go out and they put a little tagline, Scaramucci calls president a liar. That's not what I was doing.
The strategy,
so we're all victimized by this, and what ends up happening is we get ginned up and upset with each other. I had to calm my wife down last night because she watched the video of me yesterday on their show 4 times. I didn't really say the president was a liar. I said the president is using a methodology of mistruth to create that level of tension and anxiety. He's like pushing the mainstream media and the left, and he's trying to galvanize his base. And it's a media device. And if you read the president's books, in writing my book, I read every single one of the president's books, and one of his strategies is to get the volume up on the media. He's done a very, very good job
we're going to talk about your book in
the campaign and in the presidency.
But when you talk about not firing the first shot, but always returning fire, are what we're seeing now, is this the West Wing on offense? Based on the criticism that's come from Pelosi and Schumer and John Brennan?
Yeah, well, listen, I think it is, and I think that everybody would be well served if there was another peace meeting. You may remember this going back into the transition. I think it was the first week of December. A lot of the business executives in the media, this quote-unquote suits, descended on Trump Tower, and they had a big meeting on the 26th floor in the conference room to see if we could work on a pattern of de-escalation. It didn't work. But now we're here at the borderline of violence. Maybe it's time to revisit that in the West Wing, where a group of media executives get down there with the president and his team. They have an airing out of the issues. Clearly, remember what the president said about the Khashoggi situation. He said to Leslie Stahl, the fact that this person is a journalist makes me even more upset. And so that's telling you that he believes in the First Amendment. He wants there to be a First Amendment. He wants there to be a rigorous debate with the press. And obviously, at times, it will be adversarial. It's been adversarial for every president and every administration, frankly, left and right. But I think we got to dial it down from the wartime situation that we're in right now. And those two statements you put up, that's war declaration.
So
on
let's
each
make
other.
sure we get the president.
Let's cease fire.
Get the president's voice in there on that, because he tweeted on the media this morning saying, quote, "A very big part of the anger we see today in our society is caused by the purposely false and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media that I refer to as fake news. It has gotten so bad and hateful that is beyond description. Mainstream media must clean up its act fast." We are now 12 days out from midterm elections. Where do things stand?
It's tight. It's a lot tighter than people think. I mean, if you look at the polling data, you look at some of the underlying polling data that we were looking at yesterday, and I look at certain polls, the same certain polls I was looking at in 2016, that were very predictive of the president's electoral success, despite people like Nate Silver saying otherwise. But I do
He's got
think
the
that
House going Democratic by 86%.
86%, but he said Secretary Clinton was going to win by 86%.
I understood the point.
I mean, literally 2 years earlier. But I do think that this bomb scare, and I do think that the perpetration of the bomb scare has cut some of that momentum, some of that galvanizing momentum that was taking place in the Republican Party. So the Republicans have to bring out the vote. You've got to get the voter participation up. Complacent voters that are happy about the economy, happy about the president, they have a tendency to stay home. Angry voters, the ones that are really upset with the president, they have a tendency to turn out. That's why most presidents lose the midterm elections.
Well, 12 days is a long time in politics, isn't it, Anthony?
Well, look, it's a mooch in one day. So, you know, a lot can happen. A lot can happen in a mooch.
We booked you 2 days ago to talk about your book. I think what's interesting about your book, and I'll give you a chance to pitch it here, is that you grew up in New York. You became very successful. You made a lot of money.
Thank God.
And you make the case that you lost touch with America. Now, how did you find a way to understand that what was happening, let's say, west of New Jersey?
Yeah, so just quickly, my dad was a blue-collar worker. I saw my mother put his lunch pail together and, worked 42 years at the same construction company. We had a nice middle-class upbringing, but then I went to Tufts and Harvard, Goldman Sachs, and built 2 hedge fund businesses. And then I started talking to my peer group that happened to be very wealthy, and I started getting all those confirmed biases of the establishment and the elites. And it wasn't until I joined the Trump campaign and ended up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and crossed the security border and went in to see the people that were talking about supporting President Trump that I realized that he was talking to my friends in my neighborhood, the ones that didn't go to college, my cousin Bobby, who's a clamor, my cousin Augie, who's in the auto glass installation business. He was talking to people that I grew up with, and those people love him. Those people feel that there has not been a voice of advocacy from the Oval Office in maybe the last 30 or 35 years. And they like him. And so if he says something like a malaprop, or he says something that maybe, needs to be fact-checked, they actually don't care. They're more focused on the policies and less focuses on the nuances of his personality. And so I tried to put that in the book, and I did a lot of research on the president's dad and a lot of research on the president when he's a younger man. I interviewed a lot of people that lived in the Trump apartments, and they would talk about Mr. Trump, the 25-year-old Trump, in the DJT car with the license plate and the big Cadillac, going over there and collecting coins out of the laundry facilities, collecting coins out of a vending machine, and also letting people slide once in a while on rent when they were having tough times in their lives. And so the president brought all of that blue-collar interaction, all that blue-collar interaction with construction workers into the game of politics. And here's what he did, guys. You have to really think about it. He took the Republican Party's mantle of leadership in the nomination, and then he stole the base of the other party. And he brought it over to the Republicans.
Yeah,
while they were focused on social issues and political correctness,
he was
they left
focused
the blue-collar families.
Economic desperation on behalf of so many.
So even though the president has a golden toilet seat somewhere in Trump Tower, the blue-collar people love him, and that was the point of the book.
The blue-collar president,
great
Anthony Scaramucci.
It's on Amazon. Help me get those sales up, fellas.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Great to be here.